Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you're doing well today. I want you to know that I've really enjoyed getting to speak to those of you who signed up for a phone call or a FaceTime. It's really warmed my heart and it makes me smile every time I hang up. So if you haven't signed up, there's still some times today. So get on there and I will give you a call. Make sure you leave me your phone number and tell me if you want a FaceTime or a phone call. This week we've turned the corner. We're still talking about Earth Day, and Earth Day is today. And in reading, we've been reading stories about our Earth, and we started talking about cause and effect. And cause and effect is when is why something happened, and the effect is what happened as a result of that. And so why does something happen? And then what happens because of that? And so as you're thinking about these Earth Day books, a lot of them, there are some causes, some things that are happening, and I wonder why. And the why, I'm wondering if you're going to notice that a lot of the effects of these causes are things that people have done or are doing. It'll be interesting to see if that happens throughout the week. So I want you to be listening. Your purpose for listening to my story today is to listen for the cause and the effect. And then today you are going to be completing a second assignment. You're going to do some typing and writing into 3 different boxes. One is what's the cause, what was the effect, and why was that important? So you're going to have to do some thinking. Remember, if you can't answer those questions at the end of the story, you may have to go back and then listen again. So listen carefully. Don't get distracted by what's happening in your house. Okay? So get yourself nice and settled. Be sitting up nice and tall. Maybe you have a cozy blanket on your lap. Close those eyes and say, it's Earth Day today. Pretend you're sitting right at the meeting place, all ready to get our story started. So here we go. This one is fun. It's called Where Do Polar Bears Live? Can you answer that question right away? I bet some of you can. And I'm wondering what would be the cause and effects of some things that are going to be happening in the story. Remember, that's what you're listening for today. Okay, here we go. Polar bears are huge and they're super cool. Do you know where they live? Let's see if you're right. Look at this picture. Look at all these cute polar bears. Aren't they fun? Have you ever asked yourself the question, why are polar bears all white? I wonder if that question is going to be answered in my book today. The island is covered with snow. No trees grow. Nothing has green leaves. The land is white as far as you can see. Then something round and black pokes up out of the snow. Look it over here. What do you think that could be poking up? Look really carefully at the picture. It's kind of fun. A black nose sniffs the air. Then a smooth white head appears. Mother polar bear heaves herself out of her den. Do you know what the word heave means? Stop and think about that. Think about how big polar bears are. How easy is it going to be for this polar bear to get out of this space? A cub, look over here. A cub scrambles out after her. Do you think the cub is heaving itself out like the mama bear had to? I wonder. When the cub was born 4 months ago, he was no bigger than a guinea pig. Ooh, guinea pigs are pretty small. Blind and helpless, he snuggled in his mother's fur. He drank her milk and grew safe from the long Arctic winter. So a guinea pig could fit into my hands. That's not very big. Outside the den, On some days, it was 50 degrees below zero. That's crazy cold. From October to February, the sun never rose. Oh, Mrs. Boffman doesn't think she could live there. Mrs. Boffman needs the sun to be up in the sky. And I like winter, I really do, but I don't like 50 degrees below zero. Now, it's spring, even though the snow still covers the land. The cub is about the size of a Cocker Spaniel, and that's a medium-sized dog. He's ready to leave the den. For the first time, he sees bright sunlight and feels the wind ruffle his fur. Do you know what ruffle means? The cub tumbles and slides down the icy hills. His play makes him strong and teaches him to walk and run in the snow. Doesn't this look like fun? Look at this poor little guy upside down and everything. Like his mother, the cub is built to survive in the Arctic. His white furs will grow to be 6 inches thick, longer than your hand. His skin beneath the cub's fur is black. It soaks up the heat from the sun. Under the skin is a layer of fat. Like a snug blanket, this blubber keeps the heat of the bear's body. And so polar bears are kind of built for this really cold temperature because their skin is black and that collects all the sunlight to warm their bodies because they're living in that Arctic. They have some blubber. Mrs. Boffman jokes and says every winter I get a little chunky and I have some extra blubber on my body to keep me warm. Polar bears get too hot more easily than they get too cold. They stretch out on the ice to cool off. So they run because they have all this what we call insulation. They can get warm very easily. And so they stretch out. They like the cold ice to cool off and to be comfortable with. This is such a fun picture. Look at this one. The cub has never seen his father. He never will. Polar bears' fathers don't take care of the cubs. For 2 years or a little longer, that will be the mother's job. After a few days near the den, the mother leads her cub onto the frozen sea. Fur between her pads of their paws keep them from slipping on the ice. If the cub gets tired, the mother gives him a ride. Isn't that a sweet little photo? Polar bears live in the Arctic around the North Pole. Some of the Arctic is land. There are cold, rocky islands and stretches of tundra, where no trees grow. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there are no trees or anything green there? But a lot of Arctic is ice. Under the ice, there is cold, dark water. Seals live here, so do fish and shrimp and crabs that they eat. Fish and shrimp and crabs spend their whole lives underwater, but seals have to come to the surface to breathe. They use the claws on their flippers to scrape away ice, making holes so they can reach the air. Sounds like a lot of work to Mrs. Boffman to breathe, but we know that breathing is very important. The mother polar bear did not eat for months while she was in her den. She's lost hundreds of pounds. Now she needs to hunt. She smells a seal's breathing hole through 3 feet of snow and settles down to wait. She doesn't twitch a foot or take a step. If the seal hears the smallest sound, it'll dart away to another hole. So the polar bears have to find the seals, and they're under that thick blanket of ice, and they're in the ocean here. Seems to me like it might be hard to find them. At last, the bear smells the seal. She hooks it with her sharp claws and crushes its skull with her jaws. She drags it up onto the ice. The mother strips away the skin and blubber. A little Arctic fox darts in to snatch a mouthful of meat. On land, a polar bear might catch a tiny lemming. It might even nibble grass or seaweed. But to survive, polar bears need to catch seals. To catch seals, they must hunt on the ice. Every summer, some of the ice around the Arctic melts. Every winter, it freezes again. But in the last 100 years, the Earth has gotten warmer. A little more ice melts each summer. Each winter, the water is slower to freeze back into ice. I wonder if that's important. When the ice melts earlier and the water freezes later, bears have less time to hunt. They don't eat as many seals. When scientists studied polar bears in Canada, they found that the bears weighed less than they did. Thinner bears can't have as many cubs, and more of their cubs die before they can grow up to have babies on their own. If the Earth keeps getting warmer, the summer ice in the Arctic could melt completely by the time you grow up. So what do you think's going to happen if that happens? When the polar bear cub is full grown, he will be the biggest hunter on land. If he stood on his hind legs, his head would brush the ceiling of your living room. Good Lord, look up and see how big that would be. He will weigh as much as 3 tigers. Each of his footprints in the snow will be wider than a dinner plate. This polar bear is a fierce, smart hunter, but he cannot survive with no place to hunt. Without ice, polar bears will become extinct, gone forever. If the ice doesn't stop shrinking, he may be the last polar bear. Boys and girls, this is a really important page, and I want you to think about it. This talks very much about the cause, what's the problem, and what's going to happen because of it. So think about that. The end. Now remember, I want you to go back. If you have to go back, re-listen to that last page. What's the cause? What's happening? What's the problem? Okay, what's happening? And what happened as a result of that? And then finally, you're going to tell me why it's important. Okay? I want you to stop and think. You are going to complete an additional assignment in order to answer those questions today. So it's an additional assignment in the daily work under the classwork tab. So I hope you have a great day. I hope it gets a little warmer and you can get outside and play. Remember, I miss you, I love you, and I'll see you again tomorrow.